Damon is an award-winning writer-director from London. At the tender age of 7, he was introduced to the horror genre and has been a big fan ever since. Today, we're talking about the Scream 6 movie. Enjoy the show. Let's just get into it. What do you think about the movie?
I thought it was better than the last one. A lot of people had a lot of issues with Scream 5. Didn't like quite the way it moved forward. Didn't feel it had the right tone to it. But then I did like Scream 5, and I still thought this one was better. It carries on the typical Scream motifs. Like you've got your what sort of part of horror does it fit into? They've moved on to, whereas the first one is all about setting the rules of horror. The second one was about setting the rules of the sequel, and then these new ones we've moved into things like requels and stuff like that. So it followed all the same expectations as Scream, and it delivered. It didn't have the tension of the earlier films, I don't think, but in terms of brutality, it's certainly there. Some very violent kills.
It is,
in there.
and this one starts immediately. Like, it doesn't waste any time.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, you want to set something up for the audience, and Scream always does that very well. Have you? I take it you've seen the first one.
Yes, I've seen all Scream series, and I think this is the first one where we are more on the killer's perspective compared to the other ones. Like, even the very first scene, we're seeing in the point of view of the killer, and so as the movie progresses, we're dealing more with the feelings of the killer, and even then the protagonist and the antagonist, and we're sort of having to come to an idea of what exactly is a good person, and what constitutes that line between being good and bad. Because at the end of the day, the two sisters, they were trying to save themselves, but there was still a line that it seems like they were crossing. Like, are they good? Are they bad? This is like a.
I mean, I suppose it's in a way it's dealing with the trauma of the first one that this new set of characters was in.
Yeah.
So there's obviously that side of it, and that gives you, and especially the way they've put these new ones together with coming back to the whole it could be anybody.
Yeah.
And all the way through the film, they're essentially trying to tell you who it is.
Yeah.
But you still have this expectation of it literally, when it comes to the real reveal, could be anybody. So I think the way they have used the trauma in the first film to give you the doubt about the sisters, rather than just giving them that neat straight line that Sidney Prescott always had. She was always very much the good person.
Yeah.
There was no ambiguity to her in any time. So whereas somebody like Gail Weathers, they had.
I thought it was Gil.
Oh, you thought it was Gail?
I thought it was Gil.
Okay.
I was like, she's back for vengeance. Dewey's Dewey,
yeah,
Dewey's gone,
Dewey.
and she's back to just reenact her revenge. And I thought it all the way through until when she got attacked.
As to who you think it is, I mean, it's very difficult to talk too much without.
We can
giving
spoil
away.
it.
We can spoil it. You're okay with that? They've done kind of what they're doing with this lot seems very similar to what the new Halloween films did, where with the new Halloween films, if you pay attention to them, what they've essentially done is remade the first Halloween with Halloween 2018. They remade Halloween 2 with Halloween Kills, and they remade Halloween 3 with Halloween Ends, even to the point of the fonts of each film matched the original fonts of those original films. The new Scream films seem to be doing a similar trick, where if you pay attention to the way this Scream 6 rolls out, it's very similar to the way Scream 2 takes it away from Woodsboro, puts it onto, I mean, in Scream 2 it's on a college campus. Here they've got the college aspect to it, but it's more in the city. And then as it comes through to the killer reveal, it's family members of the first film.
No, wow, that's a good link, because I know, like, with horror, which was established from, like, I don't know, Hitchcock he likes to take you out of a familiar surrounding. But I didn't notice until when I was reading that all the past, like the first three, outside of the second and the third, they were outside of Winsboro. So the second was in a college,
Yes.
and the
So,
third was on like a Hollywood studio or something like that.
yeah.
And then the fourth was they went back to Woodsboro, and
Yeah.
so and the fifth was also in Woodsboro.
Fifth was Whispering.
Yeah,
So,
so this one was like taking it back there where they're outside of their comfort zone, and it was really. Another thing I noticed was, now you're in this busy city, but despite it being so busy, you're still experiencing this traumatic thing where you're still isolated, despite being around so many people. Because usually you're alone and you're attacked, but now there's people around you.
yeah, and I thought the train sequence
Yeah.
was one of the most effective sequences in the film, where they
Really
you know,
was.
literally surrounded by
People.
everybody and setting it, as a at the time they set it so that you've got loads of people all dressed up.
Exactly.
Was perfect.
That is so scary.
Yeah, and then even when the murder on the subway happened, all the way up until it was like who's gonna get it? Who is actually on the train with the actual ghost face? And even when it happened, normally you get films like that where people get murdered in public, and you think, oh, how did no one spot this? How did no one do anything? But they managed to do that really well, and I didn't feel that I was pulled away from it because it happened on a busy train. I still felt that's pretty. That could happen.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it's I think it's when they keep it to a point where you feel like actually that could happen to me. That's when horror films are at their scariest.
That's why I can't deal with like a lot of the new horror films, because it just feels too real. And with Scream, I like the fact that they break. I don't know if it's the fourth wall, where they sort of reference current, like their personal lives.
Yeah,
Because I know in like the first one, for example, when Dewey and Courtney Cox, this character, meet or something like that, and he goes, "You look better on TV or on Friends or something like that." Like he references their lives outside of the movie, and I'm not 100% sure if they did it again this time around, but they do. Oh, something I did pick up was somewhat similar to The Matrix, where they're sort of analyzing what they're doing, and they also reviewing themselves of what the viewer would see. So it's like,
yeah, and they oh god, the character's name's gone right out of my head now. From in the original series, it was he got killed in the second one. He's the guy that really does talk you through it. Who's got all the film knowledge, and he does a lot.
there's
of that
always a
referencing.
film buff in the movies
Yeah,
too.
and in this one, I think if I remember rightly, they're related to the girl that's describing the
sisters.
rules. Is
I mean, the brother twins.
Yes, they're I think they're related to the character in the first set of films, where they become the narrators essentially of, and all the way through are telling you exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and yet still you're sitting there wondering what's going to happen. And I think if they try and do that trick again, because they did it in the first film and they did it in the second film, literally, I think with 20 minutes in, half an hour in, they basically told you how it's going to play out.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to get away with that again.
But they do it every time though. Or even at the end, the killer sort of narrates the whole journey.
To a degree, I don't think in the original ones they were quite as openly direct about who it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it was I think because they're replaying a trick that the other films did, they're not only foreshadowing what's going to happen for you, you've seen it all before, and it's got to take some clever writing to be able to do all that, and for people to still go, well, I thought it was this person, I thought it could have been that person, I didn't expect it to be this one. I think the only problem I had with the film, it wasn't the reveal, it wasn't the way the character goes from being quite straight-laced and everything to suddenly being all maniacal and crazy like they often do in horror films. When they get found out, all of a sudden their whole personality changes. But there was a real massive logic flaw with it. When we found out who it was, all of a sudden you go, wait, the whole time the police force didn't know this guy was the father of the first killer, and he's been allowed to be this involved.
They changed his
with
name.
It all.
He changed his name. He had a different name.
Did he change his name?
Yeah, he had a different name.
Completely missed that.
Yeah, he had a different name, but still, How
How did a person with change their name
and
get
then
to
be in
be,
the police force.
yeah, then that
Yeah,
high
in that
up
higher.
without any back? They would have done some background checks on him.
Yeah, but also like perhaps because his son was such a big fan of of the Stab franchise or
Mm.
of the story, and he just was he preemptively knew that okay, this boy will probably at some point do something crazy. Let me just have a different identity and just have that. Oh yeah, that it was crazy. But I feel like even in this movie, like when we find out who the killer is, who done it, this time around, I feel like it was the girls that went crazy. Like it was Melissa Barrera, Sam Carpenter, and Jenna Ortega. I feel like them two are the ones that really switched, and even they kept cocking their head to the side like the killer would do. Yeah,
I hate
so
the
it's,
head cock.
yeah,
I hate the head cock.
it was like a mirroring of. I don't like the fact that her dad kept popping up in like this weird shadowy ghost like figure that sort of send messages through. I didn't necessarily like that part, but I like and okay, like you said about the Halloween sort of the mirroring of the first one and the fourth one so I was gonna ask like we're seeing characters now like the protagonists sort of reenact their vengeance in a very aggressive manner. Is that similar to Halloween, or is that something that's going on in the horror movie genre where like the protagonist is like fighting back in a very aggressive manner?
I mean, yeah, with the new Halloween films, absolutely.
Oh,
Jamie Lee Curtis basically set up a defense system against Michael Myers in Halloween 2018. And at the end of that one, she gets him into the house. She's got this whole basement area downstairs to catch him in. Gets him down, burns the house up. So yeah, there's a
so
definite
does she keep
aggression.
killing him every movie?
She's killed him a number of times now.
And he
Yes.
keeps coming back.
Yeah, she.
And it's the same Michael Myers. It's not a different.
Well, it depends on how you view the storylines of the Halloween films because there's a number of different trajectories that they've taken. You've got the original one, which included Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5. I'm pretty sure 6 was included in there as well. And then you've got the Halloween H2O films,
Okay.
which ignored everything after
Halloween
2.
H2O.
Yeah, so that was it's Halloween was made in 2000, 20 years, sorry, 20 years later. It was H20, but it got turned into H2O. So it's a really weird way of saying it's basically saying Halloween water.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
they
Is he afraid of water? Is that Jason that's afraid of water?
no, Jason's fine. I think Jason. I don't know if he was ever really afraid of water, but they did. It was a couple of film. Well, I think it was one film where he was about to step into the lake, and they made him be a little bit edgy about it, just because of that's where he died. But the fact that he's hidden in the lake as Jason with the mask on and come out with a
Shotgun or something.
no,
Oh,
it was like a crossbow type thing that he came out and shot someone with. So I don't think he's that afraid of the water.
Oh, okay.
But with the Halloween, yeah, you've got so the H20 one only was one Halloween 1, 2, and then that one, and then that was its own storyline. And then in these new ones, basically they've said ignore everything after the original Halloween. The whole storyline of Michael Myers being her brother has been erased, which is what John Carpenter wanted.
Okay.
He never wanted that storyline in there. It wasn't originally written to be part of it. They after filming, the studio got him to add this one tiny scene where Jamie Lee Curtis's character as a young girl is visiting Michael in the hospital. That then created the whole Michael's my brother scenario. So this one undoes all that. So you literally go 1, 18, and then kills and ends. But I think, to be fair, Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't kill him in the first one. Donald Pleasance does.
Okay.
In Halloween 2, Donald Pleasance kills him again. And then Jamie Lee Curtis isn't in it again until Halloween H20, and she does kill him. Then she kills him in 18. Then doesn't kill him in ends and kills him in... Sorry, doesn't kill him in kills and kills him in ends. So she's killed him 4 or 5 times.
Wow. So I believe this Scream 6 had new directors.
Yes, these guys directed a film called Ready or Not. which is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, it's really good fun. Um, it's essentially about a family that are bringing this outsider in to help fulfill almost like an offering, and they do it through a really, really extreme version of hide and seek. So they also did a short, or one of the parts of the original VHS anthology films, which was actually, it was the best of the one it was in. It was the best one. So yeah, then they came on board to, after Ready or Not, to do the new Halloween films, and I think after new Scream films.
Scream films.
I think after the first one, people were unsure because they took it. It had a different tone. It had a slightly different vibe. It was nastier than the others, and they probably, I think it's one of the criticisms that people have talked to me about with it has been that it was a little bit too much on the nose with the way they're talking about what's happening in films and what's happening at the like you were saying about the way they're describing what's happening to themselves through the rules of film. Where in the original films it was small snippets where that happened, but this one it was, there were big sequences of being very pointedly how they were describing what was going on to us. I don't know if you're a non-horror fan, if that was something that was played better than maybe to people that have been into horror for a long time and found it quite patronising. I don't know. It didn't bother me too much, but I know there were a lot of people it did bother. And I think with the new one, I thought it overcame a lot of the problems that people had
With the previous
Scream
one.
5. Yeah,
I liked Scream 5. I enjoyed it. I like the introduction of the new characters. I like them. It brings a fresh perspective to the story. I didn't like that Neve Campbell wasn't here, but I believe he probably sets up for the next movie. She probably will come back if she gets a better money offer.
Honestly, I was fine that she wasn't
I
there.
was fine too.
It's one of those things where we don't have, if we got the same people in the same film over and over and over and over, you're never gonna get anything different. It's always going to be about the survival of Sidney Prescott.
Yeah.
Now, I actually was there was this little hope in me
That she would come up.
the whole thing was a media ruse to hide her being the killer in the new one. That's what, when they came out, that's what I was sort of hoping for, that they'd really done a rug pull on it. It would have made no sense whatsoever for Sidney to suddenly become Ghostface, but I think it would have been a good twist in there.
It would have been good. I would have liked to see something crazy like that too. Like, that's why I thought it was Courtney Cox. I really thought she was back to avenge Dewey, and yeah, I would have liked that. I really would have liked that. I wish Dewey didn't die in the previous one, and I can't believe Courtney is still alive. Actually, how are they still surviving? That's actually something, because they're very similar to the killers now, in that they don't die as quick anymore.
I think the whole get stabbed in the stomach doesn't necessarily mean you're dead. Is like a bit. People have survived multiple stab wounds before. It's not like you get a stab and you're gonna die. I think they've actually. It's not bad that that they've kind of done that. Have they pushed it a little bit too far with some of the slayings? Then end up not being proper slayings. Again, it's all like the rug pull thing. It's. I think personally, you need to be a little bit braver with some of those decisions. If you're going to do it, do it. They did it with Dewey, and actually, I thought that was quite good. I think there wasn't anything left for Dewey to serve to the story for me. So taking him out was absolutely fine. He'd other than either getting him back with Courtney Cox or once again being
Because even that fact, so sorry I cut you off there. The fact that Courtney and David, they were together, and they really were together in real life, and so he references that it mirrors their real life.
Yeah.
So that's another thing Scream does that.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be careful, because there's meta, and then there is almost like you said with the fourth wall. The fourth wall is more referencing the camera and talking to us, but there's an in between where you're going to the meta place where you're referencing things in real life that impact you, but it's that they're doing that with the rules, you know. So they keeps to a level. But I think when you start actually referencing stuff that has happened to the people as actors rather than characters and bringing it in, you're almost spoofing. That's the sort of stuff I'd expect Scary Movie to bring in, rather than
I used to
Scream.
love scary movies so much.
I hated Scary Movie.
Oh, you see, that's it. I mean, the first three amazing. Then everything after that, it just went downhill.
No, I'm not a fan of that. All the modern spoofing films, I'm just not a fan
They
of.
don't do spoofing movies anymore, do they?
Thank God.
They stopped. I wish they still did it because I grew up with that. I loved Scary Movie, No Another Teen Movie.
I grew up with like Airplane and Naked Gun and Hot Shots and Top Secret.
Which was spoofing movies, right?
Yeah, and I love those spoofs because they spoofed the movie type. They weren't literally just, I mean, Airplane did to a degree, where they were just actually referencing scenes from the films, but felt Scary Movie literally just took a scene from a film which had some relevance, no relevance, whatever, and just replayed it and put a little bit of silliness in there.
They could literally just walk out of this room and there's a scene from a different movie.
Yeah.
Just
When they started putting stuff from like 300 in there, I'm like, what's this got to do with anything? These are supposed to be spoofing horror films. What are Spartans doing in here?
That's very true. One thing I wanted to pick out that I noticed, that because I studied film in uni, and in terms of the godfather of films, Alfred Hitchcock, and how he or horror movies, not just films, the technique he uses in terms of representation and symbolism, and the actual act of stabbing. When we think about that really amazing movie that he did, what's that movie?
Psycho?
Psycho. There you go. Thank you. Where he's, they're stabbing the lady in the shower, and it's symbolic of sexual violence. And if we then look at that symbolism that's been established by Hitchcock, and you follow that through to Scream, you can see that a lot of the time the killers are sexually repressed, and they are enacting this violence and some sort of sexual outrage.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things in horror that I've always wondered, was it intentional, or was it something that just sort of started to be noticed as so people started to do it? I mean, in Psycho, there definitely was the sexual violence aspect to it. And the genius with Hitchcock was in that shower scene, you never ever see the blade touch the skin. It's cut so brilliantly that you never see an actual bit of violence occur, but you believe you have.
Yeah, the cuts are just so amazing, and the way you put it all together.
There's a documentary about how all that was cut together and how everything was very specific. It's a really interesting watch if you get time. But I think with all that sexualization of the antagonist and the way they prey on people, obviously through the 80s and also in the 70s, there was all the gratuitous nudity that came through in horror films. So there was always a sexual element to the way people were being preyed upon and killed, and it always came out with that. Or we believe it was all about the whole the good girl becomes the final girl. Again, it's whether or not all of that was intentional or it actually just so happened that the person that doesn't have sex is the person that doesn't die.
Yeah.
And then it became a trope. So I think there was this whole use of sexualization to create the killer, but then it sort of got turned on its head, and that's the anti-sexualization was then used to create the ultimate protagonist in those films. Halloween, she's Jamie Lee Curtis is the girl that likes the boy but doesn't have the nous to go and talk to him in Scream. Sidney Prescott is the I can only do the PG-13 rated version of all of this sort of thing. But Scream was literally.
Well, we never really see her do anything. Neve Campbell,
No.
and even Jenna Ortega. She's seems like she hasn't done anything. Like, but the sisters,
They can't.
they can't.
The rules of
exactly.
the films don't allow them.
And then the girl and then the blonde bombshell who seems sexual is the first one that's supposedly killed. Well, not the first. She's the first. No. Okay, second girl. The first girl was a teacher, and she was there on a date. She was was looking for a sexual partner or an intimate partner, and in that act, she's violently murdered.
So it's always there in the background with these things. But I think it was more, especially from the protagonist's point of view. I think it was more accidental that it was a thing that way. I think you had the people that were off having sex and stuff were more throwaway characters rather than it being the writers actively going, we need to punish the people that are fornicating. I think it was just more that they did it with throwaway characters rather than using the protagonist to be doing that with, because I think it does create a different view of the protagonist if they're just off having fun. You know, it's an odd thing that when we watch these films, you do feel that if somebody is a bit more flamboyant, a bit more out there, a bit more fun, that they almost like they're so carefree of everything going around them that of course they're going to die. And so I think it was more of an accidental find that these were the people that were surviving, and then, like I said, just became a trope of the horror film rather than a intention.
Were there any symbolism? Is there any symbolism in this movie? Like anything you take away from it?
No, I struggle with sometimes with symbolism especially in a lot of modern horror filmmaking, because I think modern horror filmmakers, there are definitely some that will be doing symbolism in there. You know,
The head cock is definitely a symbol.
The head cock is just lazy.
What do you mean? What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
It's just, I'm bad now. You know, it's like, they've cut their head. They must be evil. I despise it when characters get found out and then start doing stuff they've never done. Really annoys me. In Scream, the original, they took it to a little point, but then kept it. You could see that once Billy's character became known to be Ghostface and Stu, they both pretty much remained the characters they were through the film, just
until that
weren't
moment.
having. Well, no, I think they still carried on being who they were, just without having to pretend to be good. So, whilst he wasn't acting out and out evil, he was able to just drop the good bit, and so the dialogue was more of what made him sinister, rather than him having to act sinister. You know, he acted a little bit angry at times, but he never acted cock. He never did the cock. He never did all that sort of stuff. So it's, I think that was one of the things I really liked about the Scream franchises. And in Scream 2 and in Scream 6, they didn't do that, and the characters.
Scream 5.
Scream 5.
They didn't do the head cock.
No, Scream 5. But he still became a little bit more. I didn't see his original character in him anymore at the end.
Okay.
In Scream 2, when Billy Loomis's mother came into it, she no longer felt like the character she had been during the film, although they hadn't shown us too much of her as the reporter and stuff. So there was a little bit of an out with that one. And then in Scream 6, when the detective's on it, suddenly you lose his character that you've had throughout the entire film, and he's somebody else. And
wouldn't that be like some sort of character arc? Like, you know, that's his change. That's his.
I find people scarier when they're not trying to be scary.
Okay.
Somebody that talks to you on a level of just being themselves, but is still terrifying, is much better than somebody that is trying to be scary. That is, it's very, and it's very dramatic. It's
But also, like, even with the new guys, I didn't feel like they weren't like the other killers in the past, because their reason was just to avenge, and they just happened to have the Ghostface's mask, and they had all the tools and the accessories to get all the equipment to reenact the revenge. They're not killers, and they're not like special. Like, they didn't really know what they were doing. Yes, they had a plan, but I don't feel like there was a lot of it wasn't deep. The darkness wasn't deep, apart from just reenacting that
that's
avenging.
that's a good spot, actually. I hadn't thought about that, because Billy had been traumatized through his childhood because of everything that happened between Sydney's dad and his mum and all of that, and so there was a deep-seated hatred in there which overspilled. Stu was just easily brought along for the ride, and again in the second one it was a revenge thing, but she had obviously gone through all of that as well, alongside Billy, and so I suppose with the new ones, it was just a kid that,
and so they're probably acting like what they think
maybe
a killer would behave like.
Maybe
because the other killers weren't like that. Exactly. So even now with 5 and 6, they're all actually from the third one with Julia Roberts. Is it Julia? Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts, yeah.
So they're being who they think the killer could be, and so it's they're sort of taking on the character instead of being that.
So we're taking the meta thing another step, where the people are actually behaving like they think they should behave. So okay, interesting.
Why not?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting thing, because the guy in Scream 5 that plays Ghostface is actually, he's a good actor. He's great in The Boys.
I love The Boys.
Huh?
Ooh, I love The Boys.
The Boys as well.
Such a
Great
good series.
And so it's definitely not an acting thing. And the directors, I'm sure, having seen some of their earlier stuff, you can see that they are fans of the genre. So I'm sure they would have seen the same sort of things with that. So you might be onto something there. That actually they're behaving like they believe they should be behaving, rather than it being just a lazy bit of character writing.
Yeah. Is there any, like, outside of Scream and horror that we've mentioned, is there any other, like, remarkable scary movie out there now that I should try, or that we should try?
Remarkable scary movies. There's been a few actually which have really surprised me. Smile was one which
I
really
see that. Oh yeah, I can't watch that. The trailer of it alone is too. It's like, so what? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
So the idea of how I have of it is there's some sort of spirit that is haunting this lady, and and he possesses anyone, and oh my god, even the poster is crazy.
It's very much like It Follows.
Yeah.
It's got a very similar narrative to it.
I can't. If
you want something a bit more fun, but it's still scary, there was a new one on Shudder, and this is annoying. The name's gone right out of my head. It's a found footage film. It's about a guy who is a YouTuber, and he wants to face his fears, and ghosts are one of his fears. And so he sets up this night in this haunted house, and he's an incredibly irritating central character, but he's at the same time quite lovable, quite funny. And there's some really actual good scary moments on it. And I just can't remember what the name of the film was. That's really frustrating me. Definitely begins with a D. That's the only thing I can remember. But yeah, if you can figure out what it is, if I figure out what it is, I'll send it to you, and you can stick it somewhere on here so that people can reference it. But there's that one that I can't remember the name of. Obviously, we've got one coming out next week.
What one?
Evil Dead Rise.
Okay.
Which there's been some preview screenings of in and around London, and word of mouth is really good. It's really good. Yeah.
I'm happy for them. I'm not watching.
I'm a big fan of the Evil Dead franchise.
So where did the love for scary movies come from?
It's all my dad and my brother's fault. Entirely their fault. My dad, when I was 7 years old, he came home with a Betamax video. So that exactly. My age comes out there. It was sort of like the competitor to VHS at the time, but VHS won, so Betamax sort of disappeared. And he brought home with him Creepshow, Dirty Harry, and Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah, I loved Jaws. Okay. Creepshow freaked me out a little bit. Dirty Harry, there were certain bits I wasn't allowed to watch because they had sex in it. So, you know, that was where my dad drew the line. And then the next week, he brought home Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh.
And so I was in and out of the room watching that one. I was 7.
Wow.
I didn't quite grasp the love of it at that point because it was still quite this is actually quite terrifying. But it wasn't until I was 10 and I was walking home from school with my brother and my best friend at the time, and they were telling me about The Thing. And they were telling me about this scene where they're doing chest compressions and the guy's chest opens up, arms go in, and the chest closes and bites off this doctor's hands. And I was like, I can't believe this thing you're telling me. I've got to, and so I was like, I have to watch it. My friends watched it, so I can watch this.
The Thing, is that the one with the lady that's possessed by
it's
like an alien thing?
It's Kurt Russell. It's 1982 film. And it's basically set in the Antarctic, where there's an alien that has been dug up by another Antarctic group from another base of the group of Norwegians, and one tiny cell can infect you, and then it replicates you. And so I watched this film, and I was just blown away. I can't tell you how literally mind blown I was that this thing existed. And that is now my favourite. It's my favourite film, or my favourite horror film. I've got, even my phone case is
The Thing.
It's a thing. I've got a tattoo of it up here as well.
Wow.
It had a quite an impact on me, that film did. John Carpenter film.
Wow. I can't remember. There's this one movie I remember watching it when I was really young. I thought that was what The Thing was, where a lady is sort of I don't know if the word is possessed, but some sort of alien thing goes into her. She lays eggs at the end of the movie. I can't remember. I saw it a couple of days ago too, and I was just because watching it.
She lays eggs. That's
Yeah.
It sounds like The Brood.
Sounds a little bit
like The Brood. Somebody laying eggs.
So all through, she's trying to find a mate all through the movie.
Oh.
She's trying to find a mate.
Species?
And then she eventually, I think that's it.
Natasha Henstridge.
Yeah, I think that's
yeah.
it.
Okay.
I was really young, and I remember like staying close to my dad, like for 24 hours. Like I can't even be alone, and I was in Nigeria. It was a horrible experience, but that movie really, really stayed with me, and I appreciate horror movies, but there's only so much I can take. Even the silent ones, the ones with the guy from The Office and Emily Blunt.
Quiet Place. Yeah.
The Quiet Place. I can't even watch that too. It's too real for me. It's too. I saw the Bird. Is it the Bird Box?
Sandra Bullock one.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock one. I enjoy that. So I think I can do like psychological thrillers and but horror is a bit.
I mean, I totally get it. I can't do roller coasters. I'm afraid of heights, and so there's this fear of the unknown with roller coasters for me. Even if they're not particularly high ones, just if they're, because I haven't gone on them, there is this, like, I know that's going to scare me, so I don't want to do it. I don't want to try it. And the feeling I get when people have persuaded me to go on small ones, and I still get freaked out on it, I like that sense of fear. I don't like that. I like the safe sense of fear I have when I watch a horror film. So I totally understand if somebody gets that unsafe sense of fear when they're watching a horror film, that you would go, no, I don't want to do this.
Okay. Last question.
Yes.
Top 3 horror movies.
Top 3 horror movies? Oh, that's a good question. The Thing, number 1 for me. I probably have Day of the Dead in there, 1985 Romero one. And then, God, that is.
What about Jeepers Creepers? That movie? No. Is
I
it
like
is
the
it darker
half
than
of it? But I didn't like the second half.
So Day of the Dead and The Thing, are they darker than Jeepers Creepers? Or is Jeepers
Yeah.
Creepers?
Yeah, Jeepers Creepers, there's a sense of fun about it.
Oh wow!
Um,
The last one I saw.
Day of the Dead is literally a bunch of people underground trying to survive a zombie apocalypse, and then the zombies break in at the end. You know, people getting ripped in half and stuff. It's got some of the best special effects you'll see. It's incredible. Tom Savini did the special effects for Day of the Dead in it. They are insanely good.
I didn't make another one. I just wrote Day of the Dead, and it says holiday. It comes out 2023.
Oh God, no. Oh yeah, that is the Day of the Dead is a Mexican holiday festival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do it every
Is that
year.
Does that link with the movie?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
It's there was Night of the Living Dead, then Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically the Dead trilogy. There were other films in it that carried on after it, but none of them were up there with those original three films. But Day of the Dead is, for me, the pinnacle of George Romero's filmmaking.
Awesome. Do you want to talk about anything you're doing, movie or something?
At the moment, I'm trying to get a feature film funded, so that's been proving time consuming and it's difficult. It's very difficult. I was initially going to be trying to get it for like 30-40 grand, but then been doing a rewrite with a friend, and we've budgeted ballooned the budget to like 250, so it's not going to be something I'm going to be able to really do privately. So trying to get that done. I've been writing a few others. I worked on an anthology with somebody, thing called Horoscopes, which has just been playing some festivals recently, so it should be, I think they're looking for a VOD release on it.
Okay.
And then I've been working with a company called London Horror Society, where we did a short film showcase recently, and we've got a little thing coming up soon, which I don't know when this is going out, so I don't know how much I can say about it.
Okay, maybe in 2 weeks.
If it's in 2 weeks, I think I'm okay. We're going to be doing a short film making competition like the 48-hour film festival. It's going to be called the 666
Ooh, okay.
Film Festival.
I'm not Christian, but Jesus Christ.
Well, it's synonymous with 666. Obviously, synonymous with horror films. So there's that coming for us. We've started sending out teasers at the moment, but when this comes out, hopefully it will be.
I would like
announced.
to be invited. I would like to be invited to this.
Yeah.
To this.
It's going to be something anybody can do.
Let me try and get involved in this
Okay.
genre and see, because the filmmaking style is very there's been a lot I could learn from it.
The thing with horror filmmaking is it spans so many other genres. You've got sci-fi horrors, you've got comedy horrors, you've got dramatic horrors. Your A24 stuff, which is
The
all very
comedic
dramatic.
horror that you like.
American Wolf in London.
American
Shaun of the Dead, I love.
Oh, that's not horror. Shaun of the Dead.
Deadstream, that's the film I was trying to think of. Its
Okay.
name is Deadstream. That's a comedy horror. So it's when it. I find that when it becomes lots and lots and lots of like out and out jokes, I less like them. And for me, Shaun of the Dead rides that.
Shaun of the Dead is not horror.
it's
I
zombie.
love that. I
It's
showed my
zombies though.
13. It was 12 or 11 at the time. I showed him and he loved
But
it.
it's still a comedy horror. It's about people being eaten by zombies.
Yeah, even at the end, his friend did get eaten, and he was a zombie at the end, wasn't he? Which is a bit sad, but he was like,
So
yeah, I'm a zombie, but I'm still okay.
But that's what's great about horror is it does span so much, and it can be very, very attainable to family. Gremlins is a horror film, but it's very attainable on a family level. It doesn't have to be out and out horrific to be a horror film, and that's one of the things I love about the genre is it's so many different things. If you're a dramatic filmmaker, you can still make a horror film.
Oh yeah, they said the difference between the horror and comedy is the sound. Do you agree with that?
Sound is so important in horror films.
A comedic dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, and it
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
Have you seen the film Sinister? That film, you get to a point where films don't really scare you so much anymore. I saw Sinister at Fright Fest, and I came out like, that was intense. And 90% of what gets you is the sound. It's the sound design they put in it. There's a scene where it's a lot of it is Ethan Hawke watching old Super 8 home movies.
Okay.
And there's this one bit where he's watching one. It's a kid with a lawnmower. It's just it's out in the dark. It's just a one light on top of this lawnmower. It's just bundling along the grass, and you've just got this soundscape of just a. You're not hearing the lawnmower. You're not hearing any atmosphere sound. It's just this one continuous noise building up dread, and then all of a sudden the light hits the face of his father tied up on the ground as the lawnmower is about to go over. You don't see it happen. You just hear this sudden. It's not a human scream. It's a sound design screaming sound, and it blasted through the cinema, and the effect of it was phenomenal.
Wow.
Take that sound away, that scene was. It wouldn't really have too much of an effect. All about the sound.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Damon. Thank you so much for coming.
No, you're welcome.
And,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, please come back again and impact us with your knowledge.
It's limited. You've probably got a lot of it out there.
Thank you so much.
Cool, no worries. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Cheers.